I was sent to another set of questions for those who accept evolution. Many were questions I've heard before, but there were some new ones, or at least new to me. Let's take a look.
If there's trillions of fossils, why aren't there millions of transitional fossils?
To begin with, where did you get trillions from? Not every creature gets fossilized. It's a rare process, so we're lucky to have the fossil record we do have. There are probably more than a few species that were never fossilized and, sadly, we'll never know about. The number of different kinds of species that we have found is probably around a few 100,000, and just about every one of those is a transitional fossil. Every fossil of an organism that is procreated is a transitional fossil. Your parents are a transitional form between you and your grandparents. There are roughly between 60 and 120 mutations between human generations. Now, that might sound like a lot, but with the complexity of the human body, most are not even noticeable. Now, if you're talking about fossilized organisms that can be used to trace the development from one species to another, we have many of those already. We have discovered enough extinct species that we're able to work out the most likely progression between ancestors and later species.
How did all the elements evolve from hydrogen?
From stars. We are literally made of star stuff. Hold on. By the way, one of my viewers asked what I'm going to do when the jar is full. Well, the plan is to go down to a bookstore and pick up a copy of Pale Blue Dot, then donate it to a local school. I hope Chapters takes jars full of coins when this is full. True. When enough hydrogen gathers together, it will collapse on itself, causing a star to form. Within this furnace, lighter elements, like the mentioned hydrogen, will be converted into heavier elements. When a star goes supernova, it will bukkake the heavier elements across the cosmos. What? Oh, that's just the term my science advisor used. Okay. Wow. Oh, wow. Well, I can see why that descriptor was used.
How can diamonds still have carbon-14 in them if they're billions of years old?
This is one of those questions I hadn't heard before. While I knew about carbon dating, I hadn't heard this claim about diamonds, so I had a bit of learning to do. For those that don't know, here's how radiocarbon dating works. Cosmic rays will interact with the nitrogen in the atmosphere to create carbon-14. Plants and animals will consume this carbon-14, which happens to be radioactive. When the organism dies, it stops consuming the carbon-14, which, since it's radioactive, decays. So, you can use the measurement of radioactive carbon-14 in the sample to roughly determine how old an object is. The less of a percentage of carbon-14 that can be detected, the older the organism was. Since the half-life of carbon-14 is 5,730 years, it is useful for dating once-living organisms up to about 50,000 years. Any older than that, and the extremely faint radioactivity coupled with other contaminants will make any estimates of age worthless. This brings us to the diamonds that were mentioned, or really testing anything of a significant age. When testing anything, you're going to get a slight false positive of carbon-14 readings due to contamination from outside sources. For example, background radiation caused by the cosmic rays that created the carbon-14 from the nitrogen in the first place. This possible contamination is usually faint enough that it can be discounted when compared to the radiation given off by an organism that died in the past 50,000 years, but will result in any testing giving the appearance of minute traces of carbon-14.
Why are there petrified trees overlapping layers that are supposedly millions of years old?
You're talking about polystrated trees. It works like this. A tree, for whatever reason, can become covered in sediment and fossilized while standing. The sediment layers are softer than the fossilized tree, so they can wear away and other layers will build up. New rock layers will continually rise up around the fossilized tree, meaning the fossil of the tree will go through multiple strata of rock.
Why have there been dinosaur bones found with soft tissues in them?
It is true that generally, before fossilization, bacteria, along with other scavengers, will remove the meat and other soft tissues from a deceased organism before any kind of mineralization process can begin. However, sometimes the soft tissues can be preserved in such a way that they are not dissolved and retain some of their original flexibility, elasticity, and resilience. This is most famously studied by Mary Higby Schweitzer, who was the one to discover and explain the preservation of said soft tissue. As a side note, while Schweitzer is a believing Old Earth Christian, she hates how creationists consistently misrepresent her work.
How did life develop from non-life?
We're not sure. There have been hypotheses put forth. Jeremy England's work in self-replicating molecules is gaining traction in the scientific community, and the Miller-Urey experiments show that proteins can form naturally, as opposed to relying on a supernatural beginning to form. It must be understood that if we have evidence of something, like evolution, we don't necessarily need to know where it came from or how it originated to say it's there. When I was a kid, my friends and I would make snow forts in the school yard. We had no idea at the time how snowflakes formed, but we did know we could roll the snow into massive balls that could be shaped into structures. Nobody would say, hey, snow, and by extension those forts, don't exist until you can explain how the flakes formed. In the same way, we can accept biological evolution based on natural selection, even if we don't know how life started. Well, that's the first batch done. Tune in next time for the rest of his questions. Oh, and last week I made a video where I was somewhat pessimistic about any positive change to gun laws in the States. Maybe I'm wrong, and if these students can keep the conversation going, there might just be some good changes in policy. Okay, maybe not.